And hello, welcome to today's conversation. My name is Gail Withers, and I'm the lead training consultant with Envision Training Solutions. And we help organizations transform their knowledge bases into fun, interactive presentations so that everybody can learn, grow, and earn together. Today, we are talking about back to school and how it can stress us out big time, not only parents, but children as well. Joining me today is Jolene King. She's an experienced occupational psychologist, mental health advocate, and principal consultant of 246 King Consulting. She's also a qualified mental health first aider and educated on the awareness of mental problems. But for me, best of all, she is a Bajan. And today we're going to get this party started. So, welcome to the conversation, Jolene. It is great to
Thank
have you with us
you.
as usual.
Thanks for having me
And
again.
you're welcome. We're talking about back to school. So, I
Mhm.
know I gave a little bio about you when we started, but tell us, how did you get into this field that you're in?
Well, I have been working in human resources for nearly 20 years. And something I found when I was working with managers is that they were encountering employees who had mental health challenges and they did not know how to deal with it. And in order to learn to advise them, I started reading more about mental health challenges, how to support people in the workplace. That's how my interest for it grew. And I got qualified, and that's how I've gotten into this, and I've kept with it over time.
Great. And I'm glad that you have gotten into it so that we could have this conversation. So, tell
Mm.
us, what is stress? We hear people talking about stress. I am so stressed out. Oh, this stress is killing me. Like when we
Mm.
say that, like what do we really mean?
All right, so stress is the human body's response to any change. That could be a physical change, an emotional change, and a psychological change. That is normal. What's not normal is the body releases cortisol when you're stressed. It's the buildup of the cortisol when it doesn't have anywhere to go, which is what leads to the abnormalities and when we feel all the tension and get all the symptoms and the signs of stress. Because human beings, from the very beginning, it's the fight or flight response. If we see danger, we either have to fight it or we have to run from it. So that is essentially what stress is. And it is a normal part of life because change is very much a normal part of life.
It is. But tell me, no. So you said what stress is, but let's
Mm.
break it down a little bit. How does stress affect us as adults versus how it would affect us, as children? Because I'm
There
sure
are,
there's a difference.
yes, there are some differences, but there are also some commonalities as well.
Hmm.
So I'll break it down and talk about adults first because that's primarily who I work with. You get headaches or migraines. You can have joint pains, stomach issues, blurred vision, sleep disruption, sweats, dizziness, irritability. For women, it can affect your menstrual cycle. It's something
Hmm.
that some people might notice. And it can lead to all sorts of substance misuse, abuse, reckless behavior. For children, same stomach issues again, headaches, bedwetting, nail biting. They can scratch their skin excessively, so that could lead to sores. Changes in appetite, that's for both adults and children. Changes in behavior for both adults and children, but especially for children where they can get unusually quiet. And there's the selective mutism as well. Children can actually choose to stop speaking, and also sleep disruption. And for both, emotional eating. If you're
Hmm.
stressed, you can eat more.
Yeah, yeah. I think too, if I can recall growing up as a child,
Mm,
my stress came from exams. I wasn't a good
yep,
exam person.
me
So
neither.
I'd get these stomach cramps the night before. You go in
That's
and you're
right.
sweating. And
Yep.
so that I guess is a sign, that's a sign of stress as well.
Mm,
So, what else would you tell us? So, I am a parent. I
mm-hmm,
am out to my all trying to organize back to school for my child.
mm-hmm,
What advice would you give me? Because we ran a poll And there were some areas that people said really affected them. Like financial stress was a big deal. How do I manage getting the uniforms, the school supplies in terms of stationery?
Mm.
They also talked about emotional stress, which is you have to do all this coordinating. So you're working, you have to fit in getting this stuff. It may not all be on the weekend. There's a lot of transporting people hither, thither, and yon. What, like, how do we manage that?
All right. As opposed to letting it be seen like a humongous task and
Yeah, every
challenge,
single every single
break
September.
everything, yeah, break everything down and let's talk about that bit by bit. The uniforms. This
Hmm.
is going to take a lot of organization with parents. And I know a lot of parents have WhatsApp groups. And if you've got children at different stages, it's about coordination. You can pass uniforms on. And if you know somebody within the community that needs it, that so you could pretty much have a bank of uniforms. Everything doesn't have to be crisp and new. Let's get away from that. We are in a cost of living crisis. If it is a secondhand uniform, if it's maintained well, what is the difference? At least the child is clothed. So that's one thing. So that can be organized outside of the PTAs and everything else. That's another solution. Um, Carpooling, nothing wrong with that. Why does everybody have to get into a car to drive to the same school? I remember when I was in secondary school, there were five of us that used to pile into one car and head to one school to save all the other parents in the neighborhood. That's another thing. Look at ways where you can save money with getting the child to school and from school. So it's again working with parents and other adults around you because we've moved so far from being a community and trying to be individuals and trying to do it all on our own. Work together and try to get these things done. Scheduling, if parents were a bit more organized themselves, that might help the children. So write down the schedule for everything that needs to happen. Use We could go back to a little chalkboard, a little whiteboard, put something on the fridge, what needs to happen, plan things the day before. Make sure the bag is packed, make sure the clothes are out so that when everybody wakes up in the morning in a mad scramble for everybody to be trying to get ready and trying to get out the door is chaos. And that in itself leads to even more stress. So it takes a lot of planning to get things done because I harken back to my childhood. It wasn't regimented, but it was structured. So, and I lived in St. Philip. When that horn goes, you better be ready and in that car. So, plan everything from the night before.
What about trying to plan for the back to school expenses before? So I'm
Mm,
thinking this may not be the perfect solution, but you know how we have these meeting turns and every month you put this money aside. You know it's gonna come every September. You have a rough idea of, for
but
example,
this
the
is
cost of
it.
the uniforms, the shoes, whatever it is. What do
Mm.
you think? Do you think that people can do that, to avoid the
Well,
stress of trying to find a lump sum?
I can't say you will avoid it, but it's about knowing, having the information beforehand so you can break it down and see what are the essentials. As I
Hmm.
said before, what you can source secondhand and so where you can source information from because there are things, shoes, children are growing, they could grow out of a pair of shoes in a term
Hmm.
at times. So there are expenses that you have to budget for and you need to budget early.
Hmm.
So we know school starts in September. Start budgeting from May,
Hmm.
putting things aside so you know what is covered. And well, it all depends on how the school functions. Some people issue booklets early, some don't. Based on somebody who might have been in that year, at least you know what you can cover. But the cost of things is going up. And people have resources overseas. So if you could get somebody to send in pencils, pens, all that stationery, that sort of thing for you, tell them to send it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's probably cheaper overseas as
Absolutely. And you
well.
get the bulk. And you get the bulk.
Yeah. So I'm thinking of all the things I went through when I was a parent. Yes, shoes was
Mm,
a big deal, and we
yes,
talking about
shoes.
shoes, but not just shoes. It was the hard shoes, it was the soft shoes,
That's
then it's
right.
all
And
the
for
other
PE and
miscellaneous
everything
things.
else. Exactly.
Yeah, and we actually had a question that came in from an audience member before today. And the
Okay.
question was, what role can teachers play in helping students better manage this transition? So, for example, you may have a child now coming into reception, this kind of
Mm-hmm.
school for the first time, or you may have a child, gradually going up. So, think of like class one, class two, which is where you prepare for the common entrance, and that is even more stress. And then you have the child who's going from primary now into secondary, and then secondary to university. So there are all these transitional steps. And I thought
Mm.
it was an interesting question because their thing was, like, okay, the parent may have done as much as they can. What
Yep.
can I, as a teacher, do now to help ease this stress? And I'm sure teachers are under stress too.
Of
of course,
course.
I'm not a teacher, so I never thought
And
about them.
teachers are also parents.
And teachers
So they
are
have it.
also
Yeah.
parents. So, well, God forbid you're your teacher and a parent with children. No, you have to manage back to school, and that's two
Exactly.
hats you're wearing. But as a teacher, how can you help the children, and I guess the parents too, because I guess it's about a conversation and what you're communicating. But let's talk about the child first, as the person being right smack dab in the middle of all this transition.
All right. So teachers preparing the child or teachers
Mm-hmm.
preparing all
Teachers
right,
preparing
teaching
the child
the
first.
child.
Yeah.
So this is their current teacher and not a teacher preparing them for the next step.
So this is me as a teacher preparing you. You've just come into my class as a newbie.
All right. So in the workplace, we will call that an induction. So when they come in,
Orientation? I don't know.
yes, yes.
Right, let's talk
You
about orientation.
have an orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to them in language that they will understand on the first day what is expected, what's going to happen, how things are going to be, lay out how it's going to be for the first week, the second week, the third week. Make sure that they're comfortable so that they're in a environment of learning, because especially the 3 4 year olds, they're in a whole new environment. This is the first time they're going to quote unquote big school,
Mm-hmm.
and chances are they probably don't know any of the children either. So all of that first week is just for them to get familiar with their surroundings, to get familiar with the people who are there, to start to make friends. So it's about communicating and getting them comfortable. The transition from primary to secondary is very similar, but we're talking about 9 to 11 year olds. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that first week was just making sure that we knew how things worked in secondary school. It wasn't just flooding us with work in the first week. Getting familiar with the timetable, explaining how things happened is about communication and just easing the child into the environment. University is pretty similar, but then you're also using other resources around, because if we're talking about UE, I don't know if they have student ambassadors, but I know universities overseas do, and they help very much with making sure that new students, what you call the freshies or
Mm-hmm.
freshers, they
Mm-hmm.
know how to find everything, everything's signposted. You go there to get this and that sort of thing. That's first week
Mm-hmm.
into the second week and the third week. So all your welcome weeks and your orientation and everything else. And that helps. And also make sure that there is scope for parents to connect, to ask questions as well.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that because one of the points that was also mentioned to me during the poll, somebody had messaged me and they said, one of the things we may not think about as adults is the academic pressure we put on children, to
Oh,
perform well, do well. When you bring home
that's
that
where the
D, I'm
biggest
going to
pressure
have a
comes
different
from.
conversation with you because what
Mm,
happened to the A or the B, even with the common entrance. the pressure that we put on them to
The fault
do
is on the parents
to
and
do what
adults
we
in
want
general.
them to do,
Hmm.
so how can we help ourselves help our children? Because sometimes we do it unconsciously, but really and truly I think the children are under enough pressure as it is without us adding to it.
Adults need to really step back, take stock, and think about how is my behavior and my attitude going to impact on these children, because children are always watching and they're
Hmm.
very perceptive, and it's not just what you're saying, is what you're doing as well. So we have to be very mindful and conscious about our behaviors and our attitudes and what we model, because they pick up on it, and how we influence them.
Hmm.
So that is crucial to minimizing the stress.
So your advice when my child brings home the D, right? What am I saying, Jolie?
Ah,
Talk to me. I'm gonna
n-
step back. I'm gonna
all
take a
right,
deep
put
breath.
a positive spin on this.
Oh, it
Look
could have been an
at
E.
have
I ain't forget
no, no,
anything.
no. That's not a positive spin. The
Hmm.
positive spin is, I expect better from you. These are the things that I expect you to be doing. If you need to restrict whatever negative practices are taking place to limit them studying or devoting time to their work, you do that, which means some effort on your part as a parent or a caregiver, then that's how you go about it. Just
Hmm.
don't come down on them and create shame and blame and embarrassment, because that doesn't achieve anything.
Yeah, I think the conversation is
Mm.
very important. What helped me was finding out what happened. Like, how come you got a D?
Exactly. Ask the
Was
question.
it something with you didn't revise properly? Were the questions extra hard? Were you nervous? Because some people blank out during exams, and especially if this is not normal for the child, something must have happened. But like being a Caribbean child
And
of
we could be
Caribbean
talking
parents is
about,
like
and
everybody
we could
just
be,
speaks out.
talking about undiagnosed learning disability here.
Yes,
There are
yeah.
things you have to think about. Have the conversation, but try your best to be positive,
Hmm.
because our expectations for our children, especially in a Caribbean context, are pretty high and at times a bit unrealistic.
Yeah. How do we help our children manage their stress on their own? So let me explain this question. You are
Mm.
a parent and you are out to all. You leave early in the morning, drop your kid off, work late. When you come home, you may not be able to help your child do homework or pay the extra attention that it needs to help it succeed. How is that child going to motivate itself to do homework and have the goals and understand that yes, my parent is not there, the onus is on me? Because that's hard. It's hard for them, and some parents just don't have it
Mm.
to give.
I alluded to it a bit before about modeling good behaviors. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you, as an adult, have structure and a routine and are somewhat focused in your life and have some goals, and also have healthy behaviors, if you sleep in regularly and exercising and eat healthy and that sort of thing, the child will pick up on that and have a structured routine. They'll know that they need to be doing homework, or they need to be doing this, or they need to be doing that. And also, you as an adult need to have positive and effective coping skills, because a child needs to have resilience and coping skills so that they can deal with life's challenges, because that limits stress. You're not always going to be there to pick up the pieces for the child as they grow up, so they need to understand how to manage stressors. Get them involved in some extracurricular activities. It can be just about going to school, doing work, and going home. It helps if they can interact with others, learn how to socialize, build life skills. So these are some of the things that will help a child to develop and grow to be a decent and fully functioning human being. Because
Mhm.
that's really the role of a parent, to raise a fully functioning human being.
Mhm. I think my biggest takeaway here, of course, is I can't go back and change the time. No, that
Mm,
behavior comment is very interesting
mm.
because sometimes we react and then think about the reaction. So our
Sometimes not
reaction,
even think about the reaction.
well, yeah. So sometimes it's like a knee jerk thing. You get the report and you see these grades and you just lose it. What happens then, I guess, is that child then doesn't want to come to you to talk about anything because they say, well, if I say A, I know the response is going to be Y, and I don't want to go there. So I believe the behavior is probably very important as well.
And something that you alluded to. Now, I've seen this new math. I don't understand it. I'm not even going to try. If you can, if you can't afford to get lessons for your child, find somebody who knows how to do this new math to assist your child in the new math.
You mean don't do
Things
it
like that.
yourself? Don't do it
Well,
yourself.
well, look, if you don't have the capacity, don't fool yourself.
Yeah, but
You
you could
don't
say
have
you
the
have
capacity.
the
No,
capacity.
no, 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 no. You send the child to school with this math that you don't understand and they
Correct.
fail. So
Correct.
no.
So why
As
I'm
I said,
laughing?
there's a village. You takes a
Yes,
village
find
to raise a
somebody.
child. You've got use your community, use your resources.
I'm laughing because I sent Nathan to lessons and I didn't understand the math either, but I'm helping him with the math. And the lesson teacher calls and he says, Mrs. Withers, can you please not help Nathan with his
Exactly.
homework?
Yeah.
When he comes, everybody's confused. You're making it harder for
Hmm.
me. I know you mean well, but can you please stop?
Hmm.
It was funny. But
That's why I call it new math. I don't
yeah,
understand the whole how they
it's
work out
not
things anymore. I
logical at
don't know.
all.
It's
So
not
you
the way
have
we're
to know your
taught.
limitations.
Exactly.
I think you have to be bold enough to ask for help. You cannot do it on your own. And don't be
Absolutely.
afraid and don't be too proud. Do not be
No.
too proud to ask for help.
Mm.
So I am going to ask you to close us out. What are three things? What are three things you want people to take away from today's conversation most of all? But especially if you're a parent.
Hmm.
I mean, we talked about the children. If you're a child, just hang in there. And I like the teacher orientation thing. And I think the
Yeah.
teacher should also have orientation for parents as well, just to manage
I was gonna
everybody's
manage. I was gonna
expectation.
say that. Have
Yeah.
a
So sorry, don't let
parents
me take away.
meeting.
Tell me
No,
your
it's
three
fine.
takeaways. What are your three biggest takeaways? Could be
Oh,
adults, parents, whoever.
for the adult, I mean, the teachers do this anyway, so it's more for the parents.
Mm-hmm.
For back to school, plan. It's not like you don't know the date is coming. Plan to limit the stress in the household, because if you stress and you panic, the children pick up on it. They have already got, there's always going to be a change in the routine from the long summer. So plan. Make sure there's a routine, there's a schedule, and everybody knows. Don't just decide, well, I'm the adult, this is what we're doing. Let everybody in the household know so that it's not a surprise on day one. And make sure you're modeling these healthy behaviors as I talked about. This sleep pattern has to be right, because they can't be staying up till 12 and 1 o'clock and they got to be getting up to go to school the next day. So make sure that everybody gets into the right sleep pattern to prepare for the coming school term. Limit all this junk food and fried food. It's not good for learning. So
Mm-hmm.
change how you're
It
eating.
is good though. It
And
is good.
yeah, it tastes good, but it ain't good for you. With how hot it is the world over, get into the habit of drinking water and staying hydrated is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just get some exercise. Limit the use of devices. I know everybody's giving their child a phone now and they've got all these different things, but there is nothing wrong with some old school play. Yes, it's hot. I understand. But they could still play on the evenings a little bit or at some point. Or, as I said before, the extracurriculars, do a sport. You don't have to be great at it, but at least get some exercise, move your joints, move your muscles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the things that I would encourage parents to get to get their children to do and for them to do as well for the upcoming school term.
Hmm. So that we wouldn't have to have another conversation next September.
Well, we probably will.
Well, Jolene, I would like to thank you. I'm going to put your information up. So, Jolene King of 246 King Consulting, that's her website, her email address. You can find her on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
She's very active there, and she also is on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to Jolene. She is our queen of mental health information. We talk about stress, we talk about so many different things. She is really our go-to. So, Jolene, I want to thank you very much, and we will get back together again soon, I am sure. Any parting words before we head out?
Good luck to everybody for the school term coming up.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, it was great being here, and we will see you again for the next conversation. Bye.
Bye.